Hey, deep divers, ever feel like you're chasing after, that unshakable inner strength?
Yeah.
Like, how do you tap into that?
Well, today we're diving into excerpts from the October 21st, 2024 Murli.
And it's all about your inner Mahavir. It's like unleashing that spiritual warrior inside you.
Ooh, I like that. Inner Mahavir. Very cool. So how does this Murli guide us toward that?
It's interesting, actually. It uses this idea of a chart.
A chart, like to track our progress.
Kind of, but not in the typical way.
Mm.
This chart isn't about, like, external goals or achievements. It's about measuring something much deeper.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are we measuring exactly?
It's about measuring how connected we are to our true selves.
Measuring interconnection, huh? That's pretty profound. So where do we even begin?
Well, the Murli starts with a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
It emphasizes Manmanabhav.
Manmanabhav.
Yeah, it's about remembering that we are souls, first and foremost, not just these, physical bodies going through the motions.
Right. It's about that awareness, that consciousness that observes everything else. The thoughts, the emotions, the sensations, all of it.
It's like those moments when you're truly present, not caught up in the mental chatter.
Exactly. That's the starting point. That's the essence of being a Mahavir. The Murli is saying that true strength, the kind that really lasts, comes from that soul consciousness.
Okay, so how do we actually cultivate that? Morelli mentioned a chart for this, right?
Right. This is where it gets really practical. It's about being radically honest with ourselves. Like, how much time are we actually spending in that soul conscious state?
So it's not just a to-do list, but more like a personal reflection log.
Exactly. It's like asking yourself, how long can I hold on to this awareness of being a soul? How long before I get swept away by everything else?
It's like a reality check for our spiritual lives. We might think of ourselves as being spiritual, but this chart reveals how much we're actually putting it into practice.
And the key here is to approach it without judgment. If you find gaps, it's not about beating yourself up. It's about using that awareness as motivation. Becoming a Mahavir, it's not like flipping a switch. It's a journey, right? And it takes honesty and effort.
So how do we put in that effort? Is it simply a matter of, like, thinking about being a soul more often?
Well, it's part of it, yeah. But the Murli takes it a step further. It emphasizes yoga.
Yoga. I'm not sure I see the connection to inner strength yet.
I know, right? When we hear yoga, we usually think of poses and stretches and...
Yeah, downward dog doesn't exactly scream inner warrior.
Exactly. But the Murli is using yoga in a broader sense. It's about connecting with the divine source through remembrance.
Okay, so more like tuning into a specific frequency, consciously connecting with something beyond just the physical world.
Precisely.
And what does that actually do? What's a benefit of this yoga of remembrance?
This is where it gets really interesting. The Murli explains that it purifies the soul. Yeah. And not just in some vague sense. It literally burns away past negativity. That's how it brings us closer to true peace and happiness.
So we're not just talking about, like, fleeting moments of peace here, but a genuine transformation from within.
Absolutely.
Wow, okay.
And like any transformation, it comes from consistent effort. The more we practice this yoga of remembrance, the stronger our connection becomes, both to our true selves and to the divine.
It's like building a muscle, right? You have to work it consistently to make it stronger. So it's the same with this yoga of remembrance. The more we connect, the stronger that connection becomes.
Exactly. And that's where the real power lies. It's in the consistent practice, in dedicating ourselves to cultivating that inner connection.
This reminds me of something I heard recently. Knowledge without action is like having a map but never leaving the house.
It feels like the Murli is making a similar point here. It's about the difference between just knowing something intellectually and actually experiencing it firsthand. You're spot on. The Murli draws a clear distinction between Gyan, which is knowledge, and Vijjan, which is more like experiential wisdom.
So it's not enough to just understand these concepts in our heads.
Exactly. We have to live them. We have to integrate them into our daily lives. Let that wisdom actually shape our thoughts, our words, our actions. It's like, when you read a cookbook, you can imagine the flavors, but it's not the same as actually tasting the food.
Right, totally. So how does this Vijjan, this experiential wisdom, play into becoming a Mahavir?
That's where the Murli gets really interesting. It reminds us that, we're all on this journey back to a state of purity and silence, a return to our spiritual home.
It's like remembering where we came from and where we're ultimately headed.
Exactly. And not getting so caught up in the material world that we forget about that.
But how do we actually find that balance? Like in our everyday lives, how do we remember our spiritual side amidst all the chaos?
Well, that's where that chart of remembrance comes in, that honest self-reflection. It's about consciously creating those pauses throughout the day.
Creating pauses.
Yeah. Even if it's just 5 minutes in the morning or a few moments before each meal, just to reconnect with yourself.
I like that, hitting the pause button amidst the chaos, just for a moment.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
those moments might be challenging at first, especially with, our minds are so used to constantly going, going, going.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
But it's like anything else. The more you practice, the easier it becomes.
It's not about like becoming some kind of detached hermit, right?
No, not at all.
It's more about creating that inner stability so you can be in the world but not completely of it.
You got it. It's about recognizing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. That's what it means to cultivate your inner Mahavir.
This is making so much more sense now. It's not about physical strength or dominance or anything like that. It's about this unshakable inner strength that comes from knowing who you truly are at your core. But we're not meant to do this alone, are we?
That's such an important point. The Murli actually talks about this. It uses the image of the Govardhan mountain being lifted, not by one person alone, but through the collective effort of many.
So we're all in this together. Our individual journeys are all connected.
Exactly. Each individual effort, no matter how small, contributes to something much, much greater.
Yeah, it really drives that point home, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like we each have a part to play in this grand endeavor.
Exactly. It's that recognition that we're all interconnected as souls. And when we connect with our true selves, well, it's like we tap into that universal energy, that collective consciousness,
It's like we become more attuned to the needs of others, more compassionate, more understanding.
Absolutely. And more likely to act from a place of love and wisdom rather than, fear and ego.
This has been incredibly insightful. It's really got me thinking about like how I'm spending my time and energy and how I can cultivate more of that Mahavir energy in my own life. I'm definitely going to start working on my own remembrance chart. What about you? Any final thoughts?
Absolutely. It's a powerful practice. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. Even a few minutes each day can make a difference.
So, to our deep divers out there, here's something to ponder. How can you build in even just 5 minutes of that soul-conscious time into your day? Until next time, keep diving deep, and remember, you have that incredible power within you to transform.